This is a technique that I've used a number of times in the past. However, I still get questions on exactly how to do it. So I thought I'd make a quick video, hopefully explaining all the answers to everybody. What we're talking about is using enamel washes through an airbrush. Specifically, we're talking about streaking grimes. Streaking grimes are available from AK Interactive and also By Mig. Essentially, it's kind of a thicker enamel wash. It's designed to recreate streaks from dirt, rain, and rust along the sides of a vehicle. It's very useful stuff. And a few years ago, I discovered that you can use it through an airbrush to use it as a quick and dirty way to shade and model almost instantly. What we have here is an ATST for Star Wars Legion, and I just want to get it painted because I've had this one model out of the entire set left sitting around unpainted for quite a while, and I just want to get it done. So I base coated it with some Vallejo Model Air Pale Blue Gray, and then I coated it with some acrylic gloss varnish, the entire thing. And that's the important step because that's going to make it a lot easier to remove the wash. For the wash, I'm using a mix of dark streaking grime and interior wash, both from AK Interactive. Now, the streaking grime is preferred to use it on its own because it goes on a nice smooth coat, very even, very solid. The washes you can do with this as well, but the washes tend to get blown around a lot more because they are thinner. I'm using a mix here because I wanted to make my own custom color, so this is going on just a little runny. But what we want to do is make sure we have a nice solid coat all over the model because we need to get it into the recesses. This is a shade layer, so obviously it needs to go into every single little nook and cranny. Now, it can be a little difficult to spray. As the enamel wash gets older, it tends to slightly dry in the bottle, and you get little bits of dried enamel falling inside, which end up clogging your airbrush. So you may have to clean out your airbrush while you're doing this. You may see me pull the back of the needle on the back of the airbrush just to blast out any debris, which is, in this case, it's fine because we're going to be wiping away any excess, so it's not the same as working with clogged paint. The next step is to simply remove the excess wash as soon as it's dry using an old t-shirt or piece of cloth and a whole lot of cotton swabs. Now, here's where I get a lot of questions, and I do literally mean as soon as it's dry, meaning as soon as the wash is dry, you can tell if it's still wet on the model. You want to still start removing it. If it's still wet on the model, then it's just going to streak. It's not going to remove as you wipe it off. And if you let it sit too long, that makes it harder to remove. So take it off as soon as possible. If you're using just the streaking grimes, you can take it off pretty fast. The washes take a little bit longer to dry, but just keep wiping and wiping and wiping, leaving the shade in the recesses. You should get probably some slight discoloration on the base coat. Even if you put down a gloss varnish, just expect that, especially if you're using very light colors. And here we are after about 20 minutes or so and a whole lot of cotton swabs. If you're having problems removing the wash, you can use a small amount of odorless thinner to help remove the enamel wash, and you just need a very small amount. Don't dip the cotton swab into the odorless thinner and then wring it out kind of like you're dry brushing. You kind of just need the fumes of an odorless thinner because you don't want it to run and get into the recesses, otherwise we're going to remove the wash from the recesses, which is what we do not want. Also, you want to try to move things going from up to down so we have some natural streaking effects as we remove the wash. Helps it make it look a little bit more realistic. You can apply your highlights before doing the wash. I just wanted paint on this ATST, and I just did the wash straight over a base coat. However, once that was done, I decided to add a little bit more detail. So I'm just dry brushing on some highlights using some game color Stonewall Gray and following that up with some white mixed in. If you're going to do more painting over the enamel wash, you may need to put down a varnish. I had this model sitting around for a week, so the enamel wash is fairly dry, still can be removed if necessary. However, we're working on the highlights here. I'm not playing around with the recesses, so I'm not worried about removing the wash. Depending on what you're doing to your model, you may need to gloss coat or flat varnish your model, depending on whatever your next step is. And then just to give you an idea how the streaking grime is actually supposed to be applied, you just use a thin brush, do streaks going from up and down on the side of your vehicle. You want to try to make sure they're perfectly vertical, you don't want them at an angle. And you just put them on, let them dry, and remove them with a Q-tip. The other way to do it is remove them with a brush that's lightly touched with some odorless thinner. I kind of prefer the Q-tip method just to blend it in and soften it, and adds a little bit more dirt detail to our model kit. And so that's the main way you use streaking grimes. You can see it's a very useful product. You can use it in 2 different ways for 2 different effects. And that's about it. There is our down and dirty ATST. Remember, all we did was a base coat, gloss varnish, put over the enamel wash, wipe that off, and 2 dry brushings, and then some detail work to the base and some scratches here and there. And that was about it. The alternative way to do this would be to use panel liner or something and a small brush and go around to every little nook and cranny and press the brush into those recesses to put the wash in, which if you want to spend a lot more time on model, of course you can do it that way, but as I said, I wanted to get this painted really quick, and so we just do the quick airbrush enamel wash, which, depending on how you use it or what you use it on, can be a lot more effective than it was on here. As I said in the beginning, this model has a lot of little nooks and crannies, made it hard to remove the wash. However, on something that's a lot smoother, let's say you just have panel lines on it, the wash is a lot easier to remove, and the results are going to be a lot cleaner and smoother. So the 2 key things to remember here is the acrylic gloss varnish to make the wash easier to remove, and then just wait for the wash to be dry, and as soon as it's dry, start removing it. And like I said, it's a very easy, effective way to add some quick shade and grime to your model kits. So, get to it. Thanks for watching.
Watch out for snakes!